Hello and welcome back. My name is Jill. Welcome back to all of you that are subscribing and following along with the story. I'm so happy to have you here. And for those of you that are new, I am reading my book, Free Will. It is a memoir, one chapter at a time here on YouTube. And there is a link in the description if you would like to purchase the book. It is available on Amazon. But if you just want to listen to this story be read by the author, I'm here to read it one chapter at a time. You can check my channel. There's a link to the channel down below in the description if you want to go back to the beginning and start at the preface just before chapter 1 so that you can get completely caught up and follow us all the way through to the end. So again, I ask that anybody that's listening, please subscribe, please hit the like button, and please share it. If you happen to be an XJW that has a lot of XDubs on your Facebook or Instagram, please share it. I would love it if more people saw it or saw the book, read the book, and I really appreciate that support. But also, anytime you pay a little bit more attention to these videos, the subscribe button and the likes and the comments, it helps more people to see it. And we all know there's a lot of people leaving the organization right now, so they can all use a lot of different voices because we can all relate to different people and everything. So appreciate that so much. And so the last time we read a couple chapters, it was pretty raw and uncut, and it's about to get a little more ugly. So I'm actually going to do 3 chapters today. They're pretty intense, and these intense chapters are kind of doing me in. I'm not really enjoying this part. I like the fun parts, and I don't mind even the emotional parts, but these ones are kind of a little deep for some reason, hitting me hard. But anyway, I'm really happy you're here, and we are going to dig right in. I'm going to stop talking so much because for some reason the last 2 videos I just can't seem to, get the right words to come out. So we'll rely on the book to bring us along. Okay, so we are on chapter 28, and we had just in the previous chapter discussed something, the event that kind of changed the way I looked at my husband from then on. So we'll talk about where we went from that point. Okay. We worked for months at overcoming this event. His half-hearted apology and excuses were barely enough. But I felt I should come back home, at least to talk, and hopefully find that he understood how devastating this was to me. We talked, we fought, and we struggled. All through it, in between fights, we could still have fun. We knew well how to distract ourselves from the problems. It was still so much easier to party, play, and drink more than we should have than face what was happening in our relationship. Even though we were trying hard, there was no longer equanimity between us. He was the head of the household after all. Even though he didn't act like he was the boss, things undisputedly went his way. I had been quite used to giving in, but now resented it more and more. A while later, after this event had been a bit fogged over after time, he told me that a couple of our friends had invited he and I to go to Mexico for a week with them. He said it would hardly cost us anything and that it would be good for us. I told him point blank that I did not want to go. I wasn't thrilled to be going on a romantic getaway with him anyway, and with the state of our relationship, I really didn't want to spend the money. With the state of our relationship, and I didn't really want to spend the money. There were important things that I felt we should have been spending money on instead. I said I didn't want to take another trip without the kids. We would still go away without them at his wish, and I was tired of leaving them behind, especially now they were headed into the teenage years, and it seemed even more important than ever to keep really connected with them. A couple days later, he told me he had bought our airline tickets to Zihuatanejo, Mexico. Wow. This was not the first time that I saw really clearly that what he wanted mattered and what I wanted didn't. I had come to know this already, but this clarified it, zoomed in on it. By the time the trip arrived, I had gotten on board mentally. I told myself not to be selfish, to enjoy the spontaneity and make the best of it. As a matter of fact, I told myself that I was grateful and that this I would use as an opportunity to rally, to make a valiant effort to get past the dark feelings I'd had about him, and so allow myself to be more open with him. I told myself I would put down my guard and try to get back the emotional intimacy with him that I missed so much. The kids stayed with friends, and I figured I could talk to them each day on the phone. I was geared up to relax and let go of worry or hang-ups. We stayed in a gorgeous condo on the beach. We had a huge deck with a hot tub and a hammock for our enjoyment. We settled in and went to dinner with our friends. We had a romantic first night. When I awoke in the early morning, the sun not yet up, I mentally talked to myself about extending myself to him. Even though we had sex, I had stopped ever snuggling with him or holding hands or even kissing much. So this first early morning in Mexico, I rolled over to be close to him. I wrapped my arm around him and scooted in close to spoon him. This was major. I hadn't done this for a very long time. I stopped these tender gestures in my attempt to protect myself from hurt feelings. I know he appreciated it because he pulled me close. It felt right to be intimate in this way once again. Later that morning, by the time I had showered in the outside shower on our private outdoor bathroom, he was up and on his computer. He suddenly was very angry at me. He said I had overdrawn my checking account, and how could I be so stupid not to pay attention to it better? There was a $25 fee, and it was ridiculous that he had to put up with this. I was quiet. I said I was sorry. I said I had done a bunch of shopping before the trip, and I guess I screwed up. I finished getting dressed for the day. He asked me for my cell phone. Puzzled, I handed it to him. He opened the back of it and pulled out the SIM card. I asked him what he was doing. He said it would be far too expensive to use my cell phone to call home from Mexico. What? But you know I need to check in with the kids, I protested. He said I could use something called Magic Jack that he would rig up on the computer to talk to them over the internet. We had already found out that our internet was sketchy in the resort where we were staying. To say I was angry was an understatement. I spoke briefly to a friend that I had left the kids with for the first time on this internet connection. The connection was staticky and kept cutting out. I did find out that my son had come down with a cold and had fallen by the pool and bruised his chin. I couldn't even talk to him and tell him I loved him. My daughter had recently started liking a boy. My friends who she was staying with let her spend the night at this boy's family's house. I was really freaking out about not being able to communicate with them. Suffice it to say, I was already regretting opening back up to my husband. It was awkward being pissed off and having to hang out with our friends and try to be chill about everything. I definitely was being a bit cold with my husband, even in front of our friends, as my walls had gone back up. That afternoon, we had an appointment with our friends to go on a chartered boat that was taking us on a snorkeling excursion. Snorkeling has to be one of my all-time favorite activities. I feel euphoria and peace under the water. But this day, it was far overshadowed by the ugliness between me and my husband. After the snorkeling, we headed to Las Gatas Beach to have a lobster lunch. I don't eat lobster or any meat, so I ordered chips and guacamole. My husband and the other couple ordered their lobsters. They brought my chips and dip, which literally consisted of 5 chips. This would have been my breakfast and lunch, and I was hungry after the snorkeling excursion. My husband reached over and helped himself to my chips. I said, "This is all I'm having. I'm hungry." He gave me the nastiest look and then turned to his friend, who was also my friend, and said, "Can you believe what a bitch she's being?" This was something that had never happened in our relationship. My husband had never done anything but brag about me to his friends. He had never talked bad about me. People would frequently tell me, "He acts like you hung the moon." The consensus was that he thought the world of me. Now, in front of my face, he tried to drag our friend into cutting me down. I was deeply hurt and I was outraged. I was done. I was so mad. I wanted to fucking get in a boat, take it back to where I could get a taxi and get to an airport and go home. I seethed. I sucked it up and finished my 3 chips. The rest of that day was a blur. I don't remember how I got through it, except by ordering the biggest pina colada they had. We still had a week to go. It was slow torture. I tried to stay busy with a book, go for a walk, jump in a kayak for a while, anything to get me away. I didn't want to have a big blow up. I hated fighting and I knew I would be in for more name calling. I felt exceptionally vulnerable being out of the country and so far from home. There were a couple times during that week that we attempted to talk about it, but we got nowhere. He didn't understand how I felt or why. I didn't understand why he wasn't so grateful that I was trying so hard and had opened myself back up to him for the first time in months, that he would have tried harder too. The wedge between us had widened. I remember flying home at the end of the week. I was so relieved it was over. I vowed to myself to never go anywhere alone with him again. I couldn't wait to see my kids. We watched a movie on the plane. We barely spoke. I paid no attention to the movie. I just stared at it with silent headphones on so I didn't have to talk to him. All the while telling myself I was done trying to please this man. This trip was the straw that broke the camel's back. So, fun little trip to Mexico. Woohoo! I wonder how many relationships end on a vacation. Okay. Next chapter, chapter 29. When we got home, life went on as usual, but not. Back to me pulling away and distancing myself from further hurt. There were more discussions of divorce, but they went nowhere, so we floundered in purgatory. One day, I was numbing my mind on Facebook when I noticed my 8th grade boyfriend was online. Dwayne, the fabulous kisser. That one special guy from school that had always held a special place in my heart. Honestly, I knew connecting with him would shake things up. I knew I was playing with fire. I didn't care. I very nervously sent him a friend request. He accepted, which was exciting. We tried to chat online a few times, but kept missing each other. We would leave messages to each other and exchange pleasantries about how nice it was to be in touch. Every time I thought we might chat, my heart would start pounding so hard, nervous, excited, and a little scared of how I felt. My husband was gone so much every night, drinking, golfing, working, so I had most nights available to chat online. Once we started chatting online, I found Dwayne was newly divorced. I also learned a few other details of his life, his family, and his work. When I told him some things about my own life, Dwayne said he felt uncomfortable about us talking online since I was married, especially since his own marriage had ended because of an affair that had started online. I respected his saying that, but selfishly, I pushed forward. I explained that I didn't care anymore about my marriage, that I'd wanted out for a long time, but I didn't know how to end it. This was true, and I think somewhere inside me I knew that connecting with Dwayne would facilitate the final blow to finish this marriage that was in shreds. Our conversation got intensely intimate very fast. We both felt a thrill of excitement at the thought of possibly seeing each other. As things escalated in what were becoming daily conversations, things between my husband and I continued to spiral downward, which made it easy for me to tell him I wanted to separate. I wanted so much to see Dwayne. In my mind, I felt if I didn't see Dwayne till my husband and I were separated, then I wouldn't feel guilty. But honestly, I didn't feel guilty either way. I was sick and tired of trying to make it work, of asking for a divorce and being told no. My husband actually said to me, "I can't live without you, and you can't live without me." That comment infuriated me, actually motivated me even more to get out of this. Finally, he agreed, or at least concluded, that if we weren't going to get a divorce, that we had to do something. He finally conceded, and we talked separation. And I am going to go do one more chapter, chapter 30. The day my husband moved out was the day I planned to meet Dwayne. We met on a beach parking lot in Newport Beach. It was crazy. We immediately greeted each other with a hug. It was exciting and strange, familiar and foreign. From there, we drove to my favorite spot and walked down on the beach of Corona del Mar. We walked and we talked. We sat on the rocks and talked more. We stopped in a little cafe and had coffee. We took a long drive down the coast and had lunch in a restaurant on the beach. Neither of us ate more than a couple bites. It was a rare rainy day in Southern California. As we drove back to Newport, it started to drizzle. I drove us back to where his car was parked. We didn't want to say goodbye. But now it was late afternoon. Hours had floated by like minutes. I said I wanted to get a drink. There was a beach bar right there. We went in and ordered a couple of drinks. He said he'd be right back and headed towards the men's room, but then unexpectedly stopped, stepped back to me, leaned down, and kissed me. Whoa, just like I remembered, we couldn't finish our drinks fast enough. We ran back to my car in the rain. It was pouring now. I said I couldn't drive home yet, feeling a bit buzzed from the drink. So he said he'd sit in my car with me until I was ready to drive home. We started kissing and didn't stop for a long time. The rain pounded on the windows with what seemed to be the same intensity of our feelings for each other. I know that sounds like a romance novel, but it's true. It was so powerful. I would have done it right there if he'd been willing, and even suggested we get a room. But we kept it to kissing for now, just like in school, and planned to see each other again soon. Our deep connection was no figment of our imaginations. The magical energy between us felt otherworldly. At one point, we laughingly discussed if we may have known each other in a past life. It was a fiery passion that compelled us both to be together again. I saw him a few days later. The kids were going to spend the night with their dad, so I was free for the night. Dwayne and I met for dinner in Newport. We sat on the outdoor patio of the Gulfstream restaurant, sipping delicate cocktails infused with elderflower. Afterwards, we took a long walk. Eventually, we lingered in a piano bar on Pacific Coast Highway, holding hands and talking. It was a long, beautiful night that went till the wee hours of the morning. We said goodbye and planned to talk soon. A couple days later, it was Christmas Day. My husband was planning to take the kids for the day. They were all going to the movies with JW friends. When he came to get the kids, I told him I needed to talk to him. I stammered as I tried to speak. My conscience would not allow me to keep this from him. I felt compelled to be honest. As I stumbled over my words and held back the emotions I was drowning in, I told him that I had developed feelings for someone else and that I wanted to pursue it. I could immediately see that he was shocked, which was strange to me because I didn't try very hard to hide the fact that I was communicating with Dwayne. My husband had been so busy doing his own thing, he really hadn't noticed any change in me. I thought surely he suspected something like this was happening, so it took me off guard that he was genuinely shocked. He left the kids with the house. I watched them drive out of the driveway. I wandered around in our big empty house thinking this was it. My marriage would really be over. Within a half hour or so, I received a text message from my husband. It read, "Have you slept with this person?" Oh God, this was horrible. It took me forever to text back. This was real. I had to answer. I finally texted back, "Yes, I'm sorry." I went to Dwayne's for Christmas that day. I had never in my life participated in anything to do with Christmas. I was shell-shocked by what had transpired that day. I really wanted to be with Dwayne. I had just broken the news to my husband and needed to confirm that I was doing the right thing. It was a weird day. Dwayne's family was nice and welcoming, but I felt so strange about everything that was happening. Why did I feel so sorry for my husband? It broke my heart to see his reaction, but I also knew that I was sick and tired of feeling hurt and dismissed by him. The next few weeks, I tried to just move forward. This was happening, and I had to deal with it. So, not super easy to review these events. Was a lot of intense stuff. So, because I'm talking to the XJW community, I guess it takes me down a road of, I was obviously doing all kinds of things that, would put my good standing in jeopardy. And so it's kind of like which came first, the chicken or the egg. And for me, and you'll see as the story goes on, I'll be careful not to to spoil anything, but it kind of seems clear anyway throughout the whole process of my life. There was always a problem with the truth, as they call it. There was always issues. There was always something. And so when life got challenging and presented new situations and everything, from a JW perspective, it's like, oh, you were weak. You didn't go out and service enough. You didn't go to the meetings enough. But, we stopped doing all that really gung-ho spiritual stuff because, truthfully, we didn't like doing it. And we were not getting much out of it. There's kind of an emptiness there, in my opinion. It's not in any way spiritually satisfying, even when you think it's the truth, because it's so laden with fear and doomsday and judgmental, just, cruelty to people that aren't, in their good graces or whatever. So, all right. It's not the end of heavy chapters by any means, but I'm kind of happy to have those two videos over with, because they were a little more challenging for me. But again, I'm so much appreciating that you're here to support me in my vulnerability. Be kind in your comments, please. and please subscribe, please like, please comment, and please come back. I will be back with the next chapter or two, depending on how long they are. Take care.